created by Cable for Canadians.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Ontario NDP MP Bruce Hyer was born and raised in the United States, but he moved to Canada when he was in his late 20s, not to Toronto or to Montreal, but 250 kilometers north of Thunder Bay to live in a tepee and to live off the land. He still runs a wilderness eco-tour business, but now he's also the local MP, and he joins me to talk all about life beyond politics. Bruce Hyer, welcome to Beyond Politics. It is great to have you here.
Thanks very much, Catherine.
You were born and raised in the U.S.
I am an American by accident, I will confess.
Now, what does that mean, an American by accident?
And now I'm a Canadian by choice. Unlike Michael Ignatieff, who's the other way around.
So, tell me, you're an American, you lived there till you were in your 20s. And I can understand...
29.
29? Wow. What brought you here?
Nothing in life is quite as simple, but it's almost as simple as two things brought me to Canada. I love wilderness, spruce forests, lakes, rivers, etc. Yeah. And I absolutely loved Tommy Douglas. When I was in university, there were probably 6 people in the entire U.S. who knew who Tommy Douglas was, and I was one of them. And I read his speeches, and I saw some of his 8-track videos, and I just really was taken with this man who was light years ahead of not only Americans, but many Canadians as well.
How did you even find out about Tommy Douglas?
Good heavens, that's a long time ago. Some academic pursuit. I think I read a paper about him at one point. But then I started to consciously go looking for more and more information. And some of the other things that brought me here was his healthcare system, the one that he did together with Lester Pearson, via rail, 2 trains every day, twice across Canada, and 1 stubby beer bottle that you could return anywhere across Canada. That was before your time, Catherine.
So I can understand people saying, okay, I'm going to move to Canada, I'm moving to Toronto, or I'm moving to Montreal, but you moved to Thunder Bay. Why Thunder Bay? What about Thunder Bay?
I actually didn't move to Thunder Bay.
Where did you move first?
I moved to 24.7 miles west of Armstrong Station and lived in a tepee for most of a year. Then I built a log cabin and lived in it for another year. I lived mostly off the land for a couple of years. And then later I moved to Thunder Bay, which was
the big city.
250 kilometers to the south.
So why? Why did you move way out into the wilderness in a teepee?
Lots of reasons, but the main one was when I was a little boy, and people would say, well, little boy, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would often say, I'm going to move to northern Canada and live in a log cabin.
Really?
Really.
And how did they look at you when you said that?
Like, humored me.
Okay.
Sure you are, little boy. But I told so many people eventually I just had to go do it.
What did your family do when you decided to make this move?
They flipped out.
Did they?
Oh, yes. I had a wonderful
job. Not surprising, really.
I had a wonderful job making pots of money with tons of employees working for the state of Connecticut, running many of their environmental programs. And most people would say, well, there's a job for the next 40 years, but no, not for me.
Why?
Many reasons. I used to run wilderness trips across Canada, and one time I ran some of those trips in northern Quebec and ran into the James Bay Project. And it just showed me how clearly we were progressing at such a rapid rate in industrializing much of our world, and so I wanted to see wilderness before it was gone.
Is that really the reason why you wanted to do it, because you wanted to see wilderness before it was gone, or was there also something more fulfilling for you personally as an individual?
Yes. Many factors. I love the wilderness.
Yeah.
Many people go to the wilderness to rough it. I go to smooth it. I get it rough enough back here in the House of Commons. No, I love being there. It's not a hardship for me. Even living off the land for those couple of years was more fun than hardship for me when I was young.
When you talk about living off the land, that conjures up images of doing exactly what you say, like you get your food from nature, you
Yep.
don't go to the store for anything.
Yep.
Is that how you lived your life?
Well, there were occasional forays to town to do bureaucratic things and fill out paperwork and things, but yeah, most of the time I had a 50-pound bag of rice, and I had a few other staples, but a lot of it was right off the land.
Did you get bored of the food?
Yes, I did, a bit. Yeah. But what made up for it was the spirit of adventure, the feeling of self-reliance. I wouldn't want to do it forever, but for a couple of years. It's quite a contrast to what I do now, that's for sure. Now I deal with hundreds and thousands of people, and then I treasured every guest that took a train or a float plane to come and visit me.
Did you get bored of yourself?
I often do that, even today. I did a lot of reading. I did some writing, which someday I'll polish up and edit and publish. Bored. No, I wouldn't call it bored. I'd have to think about that one, but I don't remember being bored.
Was there ever a moment when you were really scared?
No, but there were moments when I was really, really lonesome. Right. Because I did most of the time by myself, and we're meant to be social creatures, and I'm a fairly social creature myself.
Did you think of packing it in on those lonesome moments?
There were times.
Yeah.
There were times. I did silly things like go through the ice, and I guess I was scared then. One night I got off, my only access was by train, several kilometers from my teepee. And one night in the middle of the night I got off the train, and it was a huge blizzard, and I got lost on the lake and wandered around for hours and stumbled into the bush and made a fire and spent the night and got through it.
Yeah. See, what I wonder is, for most people, it's not really a great adventure to go out and do that all on your own. What it is more is just, it's kind of scary. You're out there all on your own. You have to manage your resources carefully. You have to care for yourself because you are in the wilderness. There are wild animals. That's what happens in the wilderness. And the weather is not always your friend. But you seem to actually, that's what you went for. You went for that.
Well, I've been camping and fishing and doing a variety of things from the time I was a little kid. If you want scary, you want to be in the House of Commons these days.
Okay, so you're totally
My
prepared.
wife called me, when I first got elected after a couple of months, my wife called me and she said, Bruce, what's your new job like there in the House of Commons? I said, Margaret, it's a lot like when I was a police officer. It's 95% paperwork and tedium and long hours and 5% pure terror.
Were you really a police officer?
I really was.
When?
In Connecticut.
Really?
For a little while.
Yeah, and that wasn't a career for you either?
Not a long-term career, no.
No. So you're up, you're living in a teepee. By the way, having not talked to too many people about living in a teepee, was it cold? Was it like, what's
after
like
the
living
After
in
the fire went out at 1 a.m, it was pretty cool. Yeah, but I had a big warm sleeping bag. It was insulated. It was a 2-wall teepee, and I stuffed it with moss, and I made a false ceiling, and I had a little tiny stove in it that would hold the fire for about 2 hours. So I'd have lots of kindling before I went to bed, and get up in the morning and stuff the stove and light it and go back to bed for a little while, wait
until you were warmed up.
Yeah, exactly.
So then you built a log cabin.
Yep.
Did you build it yourself?
Yes.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah, book in one hand, axe in the other, you get it done.
Really?
Yes.
You literally just followed directions on how to do it?
First one I ever built.
And does that mean you've built more?
Yeah, I used to teach log building. Wow. I mean, I had built one, so what's
right. So at what stage along this path did you realize that this might be like a business opportunity for you? Actually,
before I did it, it was partly go live in the woods and partly create a wilderness ecotourism business.
Right. And that took off fairly well.
It's doing very well. I still own it, but I have almost nothing directly to do with it now because I work 70, 80 hours a week with my new job. But yes, it's doing very well. Many tourism businesses in Canada are down right now for a variety of factors, but ours is steadily growing.
Tell me about what you do. So you're out there, you're catering to people who like to paddle, or are you catering to people who've never done it before either?
It's really changed over the last 35 years. It used to be very few people had the skills or the experience or the technology to go do it themselves, so they needed me and my guides.
Okay.
And now our business has shifted to being usually support for people who want to do their own things. So we give them gear if they need it. We give them advice and counsel and maps and shuttles and pre and post at our fairly fancy base camp. But more people want to do their own thing these days, and some of them really do have the skills and the experience to do it, and some of them just think they do.
And how often do you have to rescue those ones?
Once in a while.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What does that involve?
It involves canoeing or flying float planes and searching and being logical and figuring out what this silly tourist has done to themselves. And
yeah.
We've never lost anybody permanently, but we've lost a few for a day.
You fly a bush plane, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. How did you learn that great art?
You get an instructor and you pay them and you study up and you do it. It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever done in my life. A couple of weeks ago, my son turned 15, and he said, "Dad, in 1 year I'm going to be driving." And I said, "Maybe." And he said, "Maybe." I said, "Well, as soon as you get your flying license, then you can get your driving license."
Okay, just because you think it's so great?
It's absolutely wonderful. There's only two kinds of people in the world. There's pilots and there's everybody else.
Why? What's great about being a pilot?
I think many of us type A's desire control or the illusion of control. And if there's anything that your flying instructors teach you and flying teaches you, it's you're in control. If you do well, it's your responsibility. And if you hurt yourself or your airplane or worse, you're the reason.
Have you ever been in any close calls?
Never.
Really? Good for you. So you're
I'm an old, non-bold pilot.
Okay. You just get her up and bring her down safely, or?
My friends who drive with me say I'm a little scary. And when they fly with me, they say I'm much better. And it's because I learned to fly when I was close to 40, and I learned to drive when I was 16 and immortal.
Yeah, well, there are no speed limits in the air, I guess, so that's an advantage.
No, slow is dangerous, actually, not fast.
Yeah. What's been your best trip? Like if you're up there and you're going out into the wilderness, what's been the best time that you've had up there?
Oh my goodness, there are just dozens and dozens. I've been in every province and every territory on wilderness canoe trips, and I just love canoe tripping. There's lots. There have been trips in the Northwest Territories, Northern Quebec, Labrador, the Torn Ghat Mountains, the list goes on. They're all good.
Yeah.
No, they're kind of like beers. There's no such thing as a bad beer, and there's rarely any such thing as a bad canoe trip. Some are just better than others. But the easy ones are fun because you get to relax and just be with your friends and enjoy the wilderness, and the hard ones are a challenge. So they're usually good.
You seem to bring this element with you. Like I noticed right now that you're wearing your hiking boots along with your suit. Is that part of who you are, that it has to kind of come with you in some way no matter what?
I guess so. I feel more comfortable in my...
Hiking boots?
Yeah, well, they're kind of semi-hiking boots. They're kind of yuppie hiking boots, but yes.
You're right, though. I'd trade them for my own, frankly.
Yeah.
So, how'd you meet your wife?
After I came out of the wilderness in 1978, I had to keep body and soul together while I started... I was doing lobbying for wilderness parks. And my wife was running a wilderness program, and she came to me. I started selling canoes out of my backyard, and so she came to me for camping gear and tents and canoes. And so I sold her canoes. And I've always enjoyed women. I'm comfortable being around women, but this particular woman made me nervous. And 17 years later, I found out why. She became my wife and then the mother of our child.
Is she as committed to wilderness as you are?
No. She is in a philosophical sense, and she loves her canoe trips too. But we have overlapping interests, and that's one of them. But she has her own career. She's a mediator and facilitator and strategic planner, and she loves her work. Mm-hmm. She works with First Nations and government agencies and nonprofits to do strategic planning, and she loves that. Yeah. But we both do love the wilderness. But no, I don't think she has any great urge to go live in a teepee for a year.
I don't know. You'd probably find some people who would, but you might be a little hard-pressed to find them. So you said before our interview that your wife is the love of your life. Why is that? Why is that?
Besides the fact that she's gorgeous and smart, and the chemistry is there, and she makes me nervous, which is
still?
Yeah, she still makes me nervous.
Why? Because you think that she's going to do something totally unpredictable?
No, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of chemistry thing. She keeps me off balance, and But in addition to that, we have the same values. So I'm an extrovert, can you tell? She's an introvert, much more private and quiet than I am. She says I'm ready, aim, fire, ready, fire, aim, rather.
Okay.
I'm impulsive. She's quite cautious and risk averse. She's very strategic in her thinking, and that's helpful. But we value almost exactly the same things. So, for example, when we got married and we combined our furniture, it was all the same style and colors, and it matched perfectly. You can send one of us out to get paint for the house, and we'll come back with just the right color, and the other one loves it. So,
is that right? Oh,
yeah,
that's
really
wonderful.
Yeah, we don't disagree on much.
And you have a son too, Michael.
Michael.
Yeah. How old is he now?
Michael just turned 15 this summer.
Yeah.
And he's already far bigger than I am.
Is he?
And smarter than I am.
How tall are you?
I'm 6 feet, but he's taller than that, and he's well over 6'1" now, and he's got huge feet. And he's only 15, so heaven knows how tall he's going to end up to be. But he's smart and he's pleasant, and he's a great kid.
What's it like to have your kid be taller than you when you're a tall man yourself?
Well, it takes a little adjustment to call your son sir, but.
Is he good to you about it at least, or does he tease you mercilessly?
Actually, my son has a deliciously dry sense of humor and a bit of a barbed wit, and he does sometimes harpoon me, but he's actually very nice to me.
Yeah, that's good.
I've got the nicest wife, the nicest kid, and the best-looking dog in Thunder Bay.
So tell me about your dog.
Buddy, golden retriever, about 10 years old, and the nice thing about having a golden retriever is every politician should have one.
Oh.
Because on those days when you're not sure that anybody loves you, Buddy loves me.
Okay. And is so happy to show you that he loves you too.
Tail's always wagging.
Yeah. Does he go on canoe trips?
Yeah, once in a while, yeah.
Yeah. Is he comfortable in a canoe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He'll sit still?
Well, pretty still.
You know how to swim anyway, so
He's
big
fine.
deal. Yeah. And then let's talk about if you have this commitment and love of what you're doing, your wilderness tours, this company that you've built, why
would you do something crazy like go into politics?
Why?
Well, this is going to sound, I don't know how it will sound, but I really am worried about Canada. I'm worried about the planet. I'm worried about what we're doing to the planet, to ourselves. And I've always believed that it's an old cliche, all that's required for evil to prevail is for humans of goodwill to do nothing. And I'm quite worried about I'm a former American, and I'm worried about our drift to being more and more like the Americans. I like the Scandinavian model more, and the older Canadian model from 30, 40 years ago. And so and also when I look at the minority governments of Trudeau and Broadbent and Lester Pearson and Tommy Douglas, that's when the things that I really value, and I think a lot of Canadians really value, happened. And so I wanted to help make that happen. So I hadn't thought about it lots. I dabbled with the idea. But when Jack Layton asked me to run 7 years ago now, I said, sure. I said, I have to check with my wife and son, but if they agree. And it didn't take me long to decide it all. So I ran for 5 years, lost twice, finally won. And I've had a lot of hard jobs in my life, but this is a whole new experience. Very hard job.
Yeah, am I right that your wife was asked to run as well?
It was really funny. One night, the Green riding president called and asked my wife to run for the Greens. And when she hung up and we could hear our side of the conversation, Michael said, Mom, that is truly ironic. You're not the environmentalist in the family. Dad is. Why didn't they ask him? We all had a good laugh. 2 nights later, when Jack Layton phoned and asked if I would run for the NDP, I said, just a minute, Jack. And I put down the phone and said, Margaret, quick, call the Greens, tell them, sure. And it would have been a riot.
But
she said no.
Now, why didn't she want to run?
As I said, she's private and introverted.
Okay. And you're not, so you threw your hat into the ring.
I'm not often.
Yeah.
No.
So tell me about Ottawa, because it's definitely not the wilderness outside of Thunder Bay.
No, it's not. It's a nice city. I'm not very urban. So I do miss my city. I miss Thunder Bay.
I think if you're anywhere, though, Ottawa's not a bad place to be because at least you have access to
If you have to be in a city, Ottawa's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I must admit, it has a lot of nice attributes to it, and I love the bike trails, and I can go paddling nearby and hiking, and I go up into the Gatineau Park quite often. And so that part's good. I do like that. But I'm tied up in meetings quite often from 7 or 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, so I don't actually get to see Ottawa all that much.
Do you like your job?
I love my job, and the odd day I hate my job. The opposite of love is not hatred, it's indifference. I'm never indifferent about my job.
What are the things that you do love, and then what are the things that you hate?
About the job?
Uh-huh.
I hate the hostility. I hate the dysfunctionality. I can see clearly that we desperately need proportional representation. 97 out of 100 democracies in the world have some kind of proportional representation. The only ones that don't are Britain, the U.S., and Canada. There's a recent book called The Spirit Level by Wilkinson and Pickett, and it does a really good job of showing why the United States is the worst developed country in the world, and the Scandinavian countries and Japan are the best in the world. And Canada's right in the middle. And so my question is, are we going to drift to be more like the Americans, which our current government would clearly like us to do, or are we going to go more to, I'm a small business person, but I'm a lefty small business person. And so I like paying taxes. They buy me civilization.
What about the stuff that you love about the job?
I have never, this is going to sound awfully biased, but I have never worked with a finer bunch of people than the NDP caucus. 37 people. They're smart, they're hardworking, they're dedicated, they're honest. They're just fantastic people. They work way harder than most of the other members of Parliament. 62% of the legislation in the last Parliament was from the NDP, with 11% of the seats.
Do you have any sense, though, with all of the things that you see wrong, or things that need to change, that you can fix them?
I've already had positive effect, and that pleases me. So for a while there, I told a joke about it was 5% error and part tedium. I do feel that I'm having some positive influence, and if that feeling continues, I will run again and hopefully win and come back. I'm mostly trained now. It takes a couple of years to learn this job, and so I feel pretty comfortable in this job now. And if I'm rehired, I'd take the job again.
You talk about the training, and maybe you mean it partly in jest, but there probably is an element to having to learn how to do things, how to learn to function in official Ottawa. How do you go about doing that? Because I'm pretty sure that beyond a hi, welcome to Parliament Hill, here's where the washrooms are, and here's how to stand up in question period and when you can do it, you don't get a lot of training.
You get some, and the other members of caucus, the old pros, have been good about sharing their knowledge and experience. My wife, when she sent me off to Ottawa, told my staff that, in her opinion, I was trainable.
That's a ringing endorsement.
Yes.
You should be proud of that one.
Yes, I am. So I've surrounded myself with great staff, and any successes I'm having, I think, are in large part due to the staff. I also have made a few mistakes, and I try not to make the same one twice.
Your commute is not that bad, I guess, most days.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, I know, but, you know, when you talk to some of the MPs from Yukon, it's not so much fun. But do you take a direct flight? Are you lucky enough to have a direct flight home?
There are a few direct flights, but I usually have to go through Toronto. And
so that does make it long.
It makes it a little bit longer, yes. Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
I feel guilty about all the greenhouse gases that I'm burning up with all these trips. One of the things that I hope Parliament figures out how to do is to maybe work longer periods and have a little bit more time in the riding so we can cut down on the number of trips. I think we should use video conferencing more. That technology is really well developed now, and I think we could use it to advantage. It doesn't always work, but I think we could cut back a lot on the travel. I try to fly turboprop now instead of jet aircraft.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's because it uses 40 or 50% less fuel.
Yeah.
A little noisier, a little slower, but it uses less fuel.
Have you ever floated the idea of video conferencing to your constituents? I mean, how do you think that Canadians in general would respond to the idea of having their MPs meet in that way?
Well, I don't think it would be a total replacement, but to do some of that. For example, we could be here maybe for 10 days on and 4 days off instead of 5-2, 5-2. For example, that would cut the number of flights down by a third immediately.
What do you do on your flights, other than worry that you're killing the environment?
Sometimes I work with my laptop and get work done. Quite often I have to do that. I have a tremendous amount of reading I have to do now. I do that. But I also do have this extroverted side, and so sometimes I sit next to very interesting people, and I talk to them, and I listen to them. And if we're going to stay grounded in reality here in the Ottawa bubble, we need to talk to real average Canadians, and not just talk at them, but which we're good at, but we have 2 ears, 1 mouth, so more listening. So I like to hear from average Canadians. That's what I really enjoy. What
is the Ottawa bubble like? I mean, is it real?
It's real. Yeah, I joke that Ottawa is 47 square miles surrounded by reality. and it's a nice place, but no, it doesn't in many ways reflect the values, the needs, the aspirations, and the problems of people all across Canada.
You were diagnosed fairly recently with cancer. What was your reaction when you received the diagnosis?
My family members were more distressed than I was. I wasn't very distressed. It may have been my unbridled optimism, which I usually have. I think a large part of it is I'll be 64 this summer. And in my then 63 years, I've lived about 125 years worth. I've led a very full life. And so, I got on it. I got the best treatments I could get, which seemed to have worked. I'm doing really well now. But I just wasn't worried. I didn't really think I was going to die soon. And if I did, I just felt that I've done a lot and I've appreciated life, and anything I get from here on out is bonus.
Yeah. Did it change the way that you approach your life?
Well, I've always hugged my wife and my kid and my dog a lot, but I do even more of that now.
Yeah. They really stepped in to help you, as far as I understand it. I mean, obviously you were undergoing treatment, so you you weren't able to get up and get out the way that you normally are.
That's wrong, actually.
You got up and got out the way that you normally?
For 2 months, every morning here in Ottawa, I got chemo. Yeah. And every day at 9 o'clock, I got radiation. And every day at 10 o'clock, I was in my office or the House of Commons. I didn't miss one day.
That's amazing.
I'm stubborn. It's better.
Is that what it is?
It's better than hanging around at home feeling sorry for yourself. Plus, there's so much work to be done. If you ever got behind, you'd never catch up.
Yeah. I bet your doctors didn't love that.
They scratched their head a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about your wife? How did she react to that?
She knows I like to work hard. She's supportive in many ways. She did come down and stay the last couple of weeks with me, and that was really appreciated because the chemo got a little much toward the end. Yeah. So she was really good at being supportive, and that was great.
You're an entrepreneur.
You got it.
And you have all these ideas all the time about what could be.
About 6 an hour.
And so here you are in Ottawa. You can't really do much about all those ideas. What do you think you might like to do next? Do you have any sense of that? I mean, obviously, you might like to keep this job if the people will keep you. But what might you like to do next?
I would like to keep this job. I'd like to keep this job for a number of more years. And the main reason is I've got a list. I've got my personal bucket list, most of which I've done. And I've got my Do Things for Canada and the World and my riding list. And I've only done about 10% of it, so I've got some more to do. So I do want to do this for a while longer. But after that, I really have an urge to do some writing. I had this fantasy, totally unfounded, that I would come to Ottawa, and every day I would get up at 6, and I'd be at the office at 7, and from 7 to 9 I would write.
Right.
Well, I'm at the office at 7, but
you're not right.
Too much. No, I got too much work to do.
Yeah. Well, I do wish you the time when you're ready to take it to be able to write down about some of your experiences and things that you might still like to do. And I hope that you have continued success here in Ottawa.
Go back to flying float planes and paddling canoes.
That sounds good.
And more time with my family.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks very much, Catherine.